Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I have been busy with all sorts of things lately, and thus I had a lot less time to spend in my craft room, and I have really missed that. I miss playing with my supplies, I missed stamping, I missed die cutting, and I missed connecting with you guys. I hope you've been well. Today I have several 3D paper easels to share. Easels made with Spellbinders August 2020 Large Die of the Month Club. I'm a big fan of dies designed to create dimensional objects, and whenever I see one, I just have to play with it and make something dimensional. These 3D objects make great gifts. I like to give them to my friends and family, and they just put them on their mantles, by their bed. They look really nice, and they're quite different compared to handmade cards. Don't get me wrong, I still love to make handmade cards, but sometimes it's nice to take a break from the card making and go into paper crafting and just make something fun and dimensional. Now, this die is truly expertly designed, like all Spellbinders dies, really, and it makes creating an easel a rather easy task. Like any die for a 3D project, it is a bit complicated, but once you take the time to learn how to use it, you'll be able to make these fun easels in no time. While I was chatting, I was showing you the canvas and easel I made earlier. You might have also seen this project on the Spellbinders YouTube channel. Now, this is the look at the die itself. It includes not just the easel, but also many decorative pieces. So don't be afraid, you don't need all these pieces to make the easel. The easel itself is just 4 pieces. There's a leg, a connector, a canvas piece, and another connector piece. I've already done all of my die cutting off camera, and we can begin assembly. Now, this piece makes the canvas itself. The die cuts the piece out and also adds the perforation, making it very easy to score and create a dimensional canvas. It is recommended to decorate your canvas before you assemble it. So if you want to watercolor it, for example, or to hot foil it, or to stamp on it, best you do it before you assemble the canvas. Personally, I find that I like to decorate a separate piece of paper and then just adhere that paper onto my canvas instead of decorating the canvas itself. Think of that as decorating a card base. We don't necessarily decorate the card base, we create a panel and then pop that panel onto the card base. You certainly can decorate the canvas itself, or you can assemble and then decorate either the assembled canvas, but no, you won't be able to foil or die cut on it or even stamp on it, or you can decorate a piece of paper and add that onto the canvas. Whichever way you like, go for it. To assemble, you will need to add strong adhesive tape or use glue on the last flap, on that smallest flap. So add adhesive to all 4 flaps. Next, fold along the score lines and assemble the canvas like so. It is very easy to do, and it makes a pretty dimensional piece. And you can use either side of the canvas. I've seen really pretty examples where the inside of the canvas was decorated for a shadow box type look. It's very creative, very cool, and I actually want to try and do that myself later. Next, you have this connector piece. You need to fold along the score lines as well, and the die adds all the score lines for you. You don't need to measure, to guess, or to do anything. You just die cut and fold. Do the accordion fold like so, and then just set this piece aside. We will use it later. We don't need it right now. Next, you'll need to die cut 5 pieces that look like this. 3 of those will make the legs for the easel, and 2 will make the brackets for the easel. To make the legs, you just add the adhesive to the smallest flap. You'll need to trim 1 piece along the lowest score line. You probably can barely see it on the paper die cut here, but you can see it really well. You can see that score line really well on the die. So just cut along that score line to shorten that piece, and that will make the back leg for the canvas or for the easel. Next, the other two die cuts, you'll need to trim them slightly. First, you'll need to cut the triangle at the top and then use the other score lines the die makes, I'm pointing to them on the die right now, to make a short and a long bracket for the easel. Just use your scissors and trim away. Add double-sided tape or add glue. Now, if you're using very thick cardstock, the 110-pound cardstock, I would say use glue. But if you're using 80-pound cardstock, strong double-sided tape will hold it in place. The tape I'm using is the double-sided tape that comes in the Spellbinders card kits. It actually is a very nice, strong quality tape. Time to assemble. I've folded along the score lines of all of my pieces, and now I am just assembling them. So these are the top and bottom brackets for your easel. These are the legs. You'll need to take the two longer legs and adhere the little flap like so. Again, you can use glue or tape. And there is a small score line to help you fold that flap. You will end up having two pieces that look like this. Now for the back leg, you have two options. If you want your easel to be collapsible, and that will make it easier to mail the easel, do not adhere the flap. Do fold it, but don't adhere it. So don't adhere the flap on the shortest leg if you want your easel to be collapsible. Then adhere the two longer legs together like so. There is a decorative piece that goes over this corner. I like to cut mine from metallic cardstock. This way you can really see the little screw detail on the paper. You'll need to cut two pieces and adhere one on the front and one on the back of your easel. Next, adhere the back leg. Add glue to the flap like so and adhere to the other two legs. Now this allows the easel to collapse. The easel won't be as sturdy this way, but it will collapse for easy storage or mailing. This is very clever, and the whole die set is actually very, very cleverly done. Next, adhere the bottom bracket. The die adds score lines to the legs that tell you where the bottom bracket needs to sit. So just add glue and adhere. Next, add the final connector. Adhere one end to the bottom bracket and the other end to the back leg. And that finishes the easel assembly process. Well, not quite. You still need to add the top bracket, and you add that based on how you position your canvas, horizontally or vertically. So decorate the canvas first, and then once you know the orientation of the canvas, adhere the top bracket. And I'll show you that at the end of this video. With my easel assembled, I actually made 3 little easels. I then started working on the backgrounds to decorate my canvases with. Lately, I've been enjoying making watercolor backgrounds using mermaid markers from Jane Davenport, and I actually shared this background technique not too long ago in another video where I talked about watercolor and hot foil stamping. I'll link to it right here in the cards. I used my media mat from Waffle Flower, mermaid markers from Jane Davenport, and Spellbinders. These are watercolor markers. They are very vibrant, exactly the type of vibrant colors I like. And I used all sorts of watercolor paper from my stash to make these backgrounds. I mostly added ink onto the mat, sprayed the ink with water to dilute it just slightly. In some cases, I also sprayed the paper so that the ink was able to flow easier on the paper, and then I pressed the paper onto the mat, creating watercolor backgrounds. I made a lot of backgrounds. I think I just played and played with these to the point where my fingers got really messy and I was all out of watercolor paper that I had prepped ahead of time to use for these backgrounds. I, of course, didn't use all of the backgrounds that I made for my today's projects, but I like to make extras and just keep them in a bin by my desk and use them when I'm creating. In fact, I wanted to make a bunch of backgrounds like these for future projects, and I'm glad I finally did. Now, in case you're new to Spellbinders and their clubs, the large die of the month, this is the Easel die and all the art supplies, is a subscription club. It is a membership available from the Spellbinders website only. The subscription is $27.50 per month, and US shipping is included in the cost. Every month, there is a new die set delivered to your door along with lots of inspiration from Spellbinders. If you enjoy die cutting, you'll enjoy these kits as the designs are always fresh and trendy like this easel. Now, I don't share projects with these kits every month here on my YouTube channel, but I do try and create fun cards or 3D paper items using these products whenever I have the time. Now, this month, Spellbinders also has a fun club add-on called Crafty Sentiments. It is a set of glimmer plates with sentiments that read, "Let's get crafty," "Hello, crafty friend," and "Living the crafty life." I thought these were perfect to foil on my watercolor backgrounds to use for my easels. I pulled my Glimmer hot foil system out and foiled away, creating fun foiled panels. Here's a quick look at all of the backgrounds I made with the mermaid markers. I won't use them all in this video, but it's good to have these kinds of backgrounds on hand and ready when making projects so that I don't need to get messy every time I want a watercolor background. I used my hinge method when foiling these, as I always have best results when I use the hinge method instead of foiling in the regular way. And I also added a cardstock shim to my plates, especially when I was using thinner watercolor paper. Like I said, I was using all sorts of watercolor paper leftovers from my stash, and some paper was really thin, while the other types of watercolor paper I used was rather thick. I'm not going to focus on the how-to of the hot foiling in this video, as this video assumes you already know how to foil. If you don't, I have other videos on my channel that walk you through the process of hot foiling from start to finish, and I'll link them here. And ta-da! Here are my little canvases with my little watercolor and foiled panels. I cut some panels using my paper trimmer, just a fraction of an inch smaller than my canvas itself, and then I die cut other panels using an old rectangle die from Spellbinders, so they are quite a bit smaller than my canvas, and there's a nice white border around them. You can see I also have a bunch of other die cuts on my desk, and these are all crafty items: paint splatters, paint tubes, paint brushes, and palettes. The dies to cut these are included in this die set in the August 2020 large die of the month, along with the easel. So those are all the other dies that you see on the magnetic sheet. All the other dies to make these crafty things. I had some little leftover pieces of watercolor paper, and I thought it would be fun to die cut my paint tubes and my paint splatters from the watercolor paper and not the regular colored cardstock. After all, my canvases were watercolored, so I wanted my art supplies to have a watercolor look to them as well. So I went ahead and did that. I'm going to show you how I assemble the pieces next, because there's a little trick to each piece. First, I put together my paint brushes. I used glue pen from Kuretake and adhered the white die-cut brush bristles onto the handle, or rather I adhered the handle onto the white bristles. I cut the handle from black, but you can do it the opposite way. You can have bristles in black and the brush handle in any other color you like. I also die cut a little metal piece for the brushes from gold metallic cardstock. There is a score line on the paintbrushes die that will tell you where to snip that piece. And so I did that and just adhered the metallic piece onto the brush to decorate it. I love the realism of these art supplies and the amount of detail. They look like miniature art supplies. So cute. There are 3 paintbrushes in this set and 3 types of handles and bristles to make fan type brush, a wide brush, and a detail brush. As for the paint tubes, that die comes with 2 pieces, the tube itself and a label. I die cut those from gold mirror cardstock and watercolor cardstock. I adhered the watercolor label onto gold paint tubes, and also for some of the canvases, I did the opposite. I adhered a gold label onto a watercolor paint tube, and these look really fun, really, realistic, I guess. There's also a palette die included. I've cut mine from white and black cardstock and also from watercolor backgrounds that I made. I then added foam adhesive from the back of the panels, and I just inlaid the watercolor pieces into the paint wells, creating my watercolor palettes. With all of the parts and pieces finally ready, I started to assemble my canvases. I adhered the foil panels onto the canvas using double-sided tape. The canvas can be used on an easel, but it can also go on the front of a card. It doesn't have to be used just on an easel. It makes a fabulous card front as well. I foiled a sub-sentiment for each of the sentiments on white cardstock, and I cut those out using a banner die to have a little V shape at the end. Next, I added my paint palette piece. I inserted the paintbrushes into the opening, and I really love how that looks. I also added several paint tubes and a splatter of paint coming out of one of the tubes. I adhered the tubes using foam adhesive and then used glue pen to add paint splatter onto the canvas. With the canvas ready, I placed it on my easel, and that's when I was able to add the top bracket. I made sure it was positioned so the canvas was sitting nice and snug in the easel, not too tight to make it impossible to take it out, but also not too loose so that it would fall out. Here's a look at all of the other canvases I decorated using these dies. I had the best time making these, and I also used some older glimmer sentiment plates from Spellbinders to make a happy birthday canvas, and also one that says, "I'm here for you today and always." For full supplies, if you're curious what supplies I used exactly, please go to the video description or to my blog. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.